As you know, only the strongest survive in nature. The law of natural selection is not distinguished by mercy. Animals are driven by instinct. For the sake of survival, many animals are ready for anything, and a person, in most cases, remains powerless if a hungry beast stands in their way. What is left for a defenseless, unarmed person to do? After all, he simply cannot escape from a wild animal, and he has nothing to defend himself with. And yet, human ingenuity can work real miracles. This story took place in western Siberia. 2 fishermen went to the river to catch fish for dinner. The weather was excellent, and the men hoped for a good catch. It was early morning, and the bite was really good. The fishermen managed to catch enough grayling to almost fill a bucket, but by lunchtime, the fish began to go deeper, and the catch was much smaller. The river was raging, so the fishermen did not dare to enter the water for a long time. They walked a little along the shore and found a quiet pool where they could safely enter the water without fear of being carried away by a huge current. The biting in this place pleased them very much, and the men, carried away by good fishing and pleasant conversation, did not notice how a huge brown bear came out on the riverbank from behind. Then one of the men, as if sensing something was wrong, turned towards the shore and was stunned in terror. A bear stood a few paces away, apparently very hungry. The man, slowly, trying not to make any sudden movements, gently touched his friend's hand and gestured for him to turn around. The second man was still laughing at an old joke, and with a huge smile on his face, he turned his head. From surprise and fear, the fishing rod fell out of his hands, and he was frozen. The bear growled furiously and took a step towards the fishermen. The men knew that bears are excellent swimmers, so they shouldn't even try to swim away from it. Besides that, the river's current was picking up, so even if they did escape the bear, they risked being carried away by the fast current. One of the friends suggested that they split up. A bear cannot chase 2 at the same time, and then at least one of them would have the slightest chance of surviving. The second friend offered to divert the attention of the bear to himself, thereby saving the life of his comrade, but the other did not agree. He insisted that they should have an equal chance of survival, so on the count of 3, they should simultaneously begin to slowly walk in different directions. As soon as one of them counted to 3, the men took several steps in different directions. The bear first looked in one direction, then in the other, and then took a few steps in the direction of one of the men. Only now did the men see that something was clearly wrong with this bear. As soon as he took a couple of steps, he sat down and began to lick his paw. Then he got up and took a few more steps, and then it became clear that his hind leg was underdeveloped and that the bear could not walk quickly. Neither of the fishermen had any idea what had happened to this bear and why his leg was like that. It turns out that a few years ago, when he was still a little bear cub, he was walking with his mother bear and cub siblings along the bank of this river when they suddenly heard the sounds of gunshots. Several male poachers quickly ran to the habitat of the bears along with their hunting dogs. The she-bear tried fiercely to defend her offspring, but then the poachers shot the poor animal several times. The huge she-bear slowly fell to the ground, and the last thing she saw was the dogs tearing her little cubs apart. The dogs tormented the little cubs until they stopped squeaking. Only after that they calmed down and returned to their owners. The poachers took away the carcass of the bear, and the small bodies of the cubs were left to lie on this shore. But one of the cubs still managed to survive. It was the same bear that was now standing in front of the 2 fishermen. The dogs wounded him very badly back then and crushed his hind paw completely with their powerful jaws, but life flickered in his small body. By the evening of that day, he was able to crawl into the bushes, and there he found several insects to feed on. It was this meager food that enabled him to survive that day. But there was no question of independent hunting. The bear could not move quickly enough to catch fish in the river. All he ate were insects, berries, and tree bark. But the survival instinct was so strong that the bear never gave up. That morning, he barely made it to the river to drink water. Seeing 2 fishermen on the shore, the bear growled furiously. It was the first time he saw a man since that brutal massacre of his family. The bear did not forget how much pain and misfortune the men brought him. Thereby, knowing that he would not be able to overtake them, he tried to at least scare them. The men did not know the whole story, but they saw how emaciated this brown bear was. Without a moment's hesitation, they jointly decided to feed this poor fellow. One of the men carefully brought his bucket of fish as close to the animal as his fear would allow. Then he began to throw the fish towards the bear. The bear pounced on them with such greed as only very hungry creatures can. Apparently, this was the first time in his life that he could eat to his heart's content. The men gave him all their catch, and only after that the bear lay back on the ground, well fed and content. For the first time in his life, he ate his fill. The men continued to stand in the water, not daring to go ashore. Here, the bear, as if understanding everything without words, quietly got up and slowly hobbled into the thicket, giving the fishermen the opportunity to go ashore. When they returned to the village and told about this incident to the locals, many began to condemn them, saying that by these actions they only prolonged the pain and misery of the poor animal. It was much more humane not to feed him, but to let him die of hunger faster. What do you think, friends? What is more humane? Feed a hungry animal and thereby prolong its life full of suffering, or pass by? Share your opinion in the comments.